It's a few days late, but let's wrap up the holiday weekend with some mailbag questions.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned in to another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. You can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. And you can listen to us wherever you get your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners, you can expect 5 episodes a week. Usually it's Monday through Friday. Since it was the holiday weekend, I thought that I was going to be able to get an episode out on Friday, but had more family time than I thought I would. So just wanted to push it back a few more days, but still get that 5th episode in. But you can almost always count on our Friday episode to be a mailbag episode. Now, I do want to point out that moving forward, we won't be titling the episode Mailbag Friday. We actually had a discussion with some of the higher-ups at Locked On, and we decided that instead of just naming it Mailbag Friday, we might name it, after one of the questions that you guys send in. Nothing else will change, though. We will still answer questions the same. You will still reach out to me the exact same way. But when you're looking on YouTube or you're looking on Spotify or wherever you listen, if you don't see Mailbag Friday, that doesn't mean we didn't do that episode. It will still be that Friday episode unless we have to push it back a little bit later on in the week. And before we dive into our first question today, I do want to give a scheduling update that beginning on December 15th, we will drop down to 3 episodes a week. So even though I just said 5, we always have about a month to a month and a half off where we go from 5 episodes a week to 3 episodes. The plan will be Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, unless, of course, I'd have to change up anything. But beginning on December 15th, you can expect 3 episodes a week for about a month to a month and a half. That is, of course, unless a signing happens or a big trade happens. If we need to go over 3 a certain week, we are absolutely going to be doing so. We're not just going to stick to 3 episodes because we have to or because we want to. If there's something big that happens, we absolutely will add on to that week. But that will be the plan moving forward, just so you guys won't be thrown off by any scheduling stuff. And do want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. All right, a few days late, but let's dive into question number 1, beginning with Alex. Are the Royals the best pro sports team in Kansas City right now? Well, of course, this coming off the heels of the Chiefs losing on Thanksgiving Day to the Dallas Cowboys. Even though I am a much bigger baseball fan, and as I'm sitting here on a cold November afternoon, I'm thinking about baseball. I'm thinking about spring training. I'm thinking about Surprise Arizona pitchers and catchers reporting. So even though I would like to say baseball is the number one choice in this town, I've lived in this town long enough to know that football is still absolutely the most important thing to a lot of people here. Not everybody, but to a lot of people. And when you win 3 Super Bowls in the stretch that Patrick Mahomes had, yes, you still can be considered the top team in Kansas City. But yes, in terms of how Kansas Cityans are looking at these 2 teams, I know more than a few people that are already sick of football season just based on how it has gone. Hopefully, though, if you're a Chiefs fan, they can rattle off, 5 victories in a row to end the season and get back to the postseason. But not looking good right now, that's for sure. This one is coming from Ryan Bergert, enthusiast. Realistically, what's the most money we would spend on a bat in free agency? I don't believe there would be an absolute limit when it comes to an affordable outfielder. So what I'm trying to get at here is they're not going to be on Kyle Tucker. They're not going to be on Cody Bellinger. I know Alex Bregman's a third baseman, but some of the top tier free agents, we're not really talking about them. But if it was for a Harrison Bader type, if it was for Rob Refsnyder and Austin Hayes, we're talking more platoon bats. I'm not sure there would be any price they'd be scared away from. And I even go back to last year when Santander was out there. They offered a good amount of money to him and also Jerks and Profar and didn't land either of them. That to me signaled there's not going to be too many players they just say are off limits. And they still may call a time or two about the Cody Bellingers of the world just to see what that price would be. It doesn't mean they're going to land him or have serious interest, but there's definitely a different way of operating nowadays in Kansas City. But I stand by the fact that their big outfield get will not be through free agency. So therefore, it kind of takes away the importance of how much they're willing to spend. Well, I see them spending in free agency. It would just be for a platoon bat or two, where they're going to be trading resources to get their everyday starting left fielder to put into that lineup. So for now, for a platoon bat, I'd imagine the most they would spend is give or take 10 to 12 million a year. And I just don't know how many guys out there are really worth 10 to 12 million a year. I could see Bader going for that value, a 2-year, $24 million deal. That wouldn't scare away the Royals at all, and I think would give you a really good option in center field and in right field for Jack Caglione. This one's from Bryce. What would an ideal return for Ragans look like if we traded him to the Red Sox? Yeah, that was the big news over the last couple of days. Not that the Royals are actively shopping Cole Ragans, but it's becoming very clear that the Red Sox, if they're going to move Jarren Duran to Kansas City, it may take someone like Cole Ragans. Now, it's also November 30th. And the Red Sox can ask, for a guy like Cole Ragans when discussing with Kansas City, because both these teams don't need to move these guys, right? They're motivated. The Red Sox are motivated to move Duran. So if you're going to move a good outfielder, why not ask for one of the best pitchers, or if not the best pitcher in the Royals rotation? It's exactly like going in for a raise for a job. You always, shoot much higher than you think you're going to get. And you see if your boss or whoever's discussing your payroll is willing to give in to that. And the Royals are not going to do that. I will say this, what caught me off guard with the article that came out in the Boston Globe involving, the Royals and what J.J. Picollo has said, to hear that Cole Ragans is not off the table had my ears perk up a little bit. I will say this, though. He's not off the table is what I should say, means that they're going to need to be absolutely floored. So your question is, what would a return look like? I feel that Cole Ragans would be the only starter in the Royals rotation that they could get Jarren Duran and then some from Boston. And if Boston's asking a lot for Jarren Duran and the Royals say, well, if you want Cole Ragans, we're going to need Jarren Duran and maybe a pitcher and then a reliever and that type of deal. I'm thinking of a couple of the young guys that they were starting in the postseason. I'm blanking on the names right now, of course. I apologize. But I would imagine if they traded Cole Ragans to get Duran, they're getting another starter with multiple years of control. And I don't see Boston wanting to do that. And the Royals are doing the right thing. You listen to offers. It doesn't mean you need to actively shop him, but the only guy that should be completely 100% off limits in any trade discussion is Bobby Witt Jr. You can listen to those deals because then you get a good gauge of maybe what a certain player may cost you. And then a month or two down the road, I know we had our loyal listener, Jeff, asking about when are the winter meetings. It's mid-December. See what they're asking in mid-December. You can ask for the moon, but the Royals will say, hey, you want a starter from this rotation? And maybe Boston's going, we really want Noah Cameron, but we're going to see if we can get Cole Ragans. And we know that we probably will settle in around that range of Noah Cameron. And then they'll eventually strike a deal where the Royals could get Jarren Duran for a Bubic, Cameron, or a Ryan Berger. But I feel that it's very, very unlikely the Royals will be moving Cole Ragans in a deal because they would have to be just absolutely floored to move a guy like him. Next one here is coming from Jayhawks Royals Steelers country. Does Brendan Donovan working out with Vinny mean anything? That was another talking point that we saw, over the weekend, that Vinny Pasquantino was working out with Brendan Donovan. It would mean more to me if Brendan Donovan, was a free agent. So Vinny working out with Brendan Donovan is a good way to see that these guys mesh well. And I'm sure that, Vinny and him have discussed, him being a trade chip. I mean, he's not naive, right? Brendan Donovan's not living under a rock. He knows that he's being shopped by his team. But for Vinny Pasquantino to be there, it's not a bad sign, but it's much different if he was a free agent and he needed some persuasion on where to sign. Since he is a trade chip, I mean, Vinny, Bobby, Matt Quatrero, J.J. Picollo could all be there, but it's more about will St. Louis deal him to Kansas City? And would they want what Kansas City has to offer? I'm sure they would, but it might cost more than just, a Chris Bubic and a prospect to get a guy like Brendan Donovan. Let's get to one more here on Twitter before our first break. It's coming from Blaze with the MLB exec saying that the Royals will spend the most on one player among small markets in an ESPN article. Do you think they'll make a play for Bo Bichette, Cody Bellinger, or Alex Bregman? I would say no, no, and no. There is just nothing that this offseason has told me to lead me in believing the Royals are going to spend a lot in free agency. I feel the path they're going to go is the trade route for notable players, and they will piece together the rest of their roster in free agency. The reason I feel that ESPN article was highlighting the Royals is they're not afraid to, right? If you look at a team like Kansas City, what they've done the last 2 off seasons, they gave Lugo and Waka big contracts. They gave Carlos Estevez a multiple-year deal. I mean, they are known to shelling out some of that money to pitchers, but it's just not going to be an offseason where they're as active on the starting pitching market or the reliever market. I could see them signing a guy or two, but for a big fish in the free agent market, I don't really see it be the Royals. But when you pair them up against other small market teams, I could see why ESPN said that, because the Royals the last 2 years have been the team to do it. But, you look at a team like Pittsburgh, who's been vocal about wanting to spend. I got to see it first. Same thing with Tampa Bay. Same thing with, a Chicago White Sox team that might be trying to improve significantly. I got to see it first before I could actually give you my vote. So for the Royals being that team, it's more so about them spending the last 2 off season than it really is about what this market looks like for them going into 2026. Let's take our first break of the show. When we come back, still plenty of questions to get to next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. Want to tell you about the title sponsor in Gametime. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's incredibly frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply, so again, use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go download Gametime today. The second round of questions is going to begin with Eli. Elliot Ramos seems to check off a lot of boxes for what they want in the outfield. Should we trade him, and would it even take Bubic, or are we looking more at Kolek in a package for him? I said this last week. It might have been last Mailbag Friday, to be honest with you, that Elliot Ramos is a guy I've seen multiple times in person. My brother's out in San Francisco, a Giants fan, so I know a lot about Elliot Ramos. He is a right-handed outfielder, a corner outfielder, can actually play all 3 outfield spots. Really, really good power for a guy playing in a cavernous ballpark. He is one of the few right-handed bats in the last 10 years that has actually gone into McCovey Cove over Levi's Landing. It is a bit of an adventure for him defensively. He is kind of a headache to watch in left field. Right field's really difficult to play out there at Oracle Park. But I could see a world in which the Royals might try to line up there. I mean, that's a right-handed bat with a lot of power. I guess you could live with the defense if, you bring in 20 to 25 home run pop. He's an above-average bat. And I could see a world in which, the Giants may take someone like Ryan Bergert. Chris Bubic went to Stanford, has San Francisco ties. So I know that he would love pitching for them if given the opportunity. I'm sure. I don't know that 100% certainty, but I'm sure it's a team that he grew up watching for, wouldn't hate playing for. And for the Giants, it's a year where I could see them being very aggressive in free agency, trying to reload that pitching staff. And to get Chris Bubic, final year before free agency, if he stays healthy, that might be worth it. If we could see the Giants go after a couple of the international free agents, maybe make a play on Kyle Tucker, I think that would be an incredible fit for them. They could then try to upgrade their pitching staff through trade and moving someone like Elliot Ramos. So he's a name I might start talking about a little bit more, because in terms of right-handed outfielders, Joe Adell is going down my list. Elliot Ramos is going a little bit up, but it's going to depend on what the Giants do in free agency. If they're wildly aggressive and then they're not spending as much on a starting pitcher, you could line up and maybe trading a Ryan Bergert or a Chris Bubic for a guy like Elliot Ramos, who's young, got a ton of power. I feel the Royals would be a little bit concerned, though, about his defense, because he was not a good defender whatsoever last year in left field. This one's coming from Aiden with the Red Sox beat reporter apparently saying that Reagans isn't off the table. Do the Royals even listen on offers for him? If they deal, my ideal trade would be Reagans for Jarren Duran, Christian Campbell, and a prospect. Your thoughts on that? See, and that's where I would imagine Boston would say no. Because as good as Cole Reagans is, right, and we can all acknowledge, the injuries that he's dealt with, but as good as he is, the one thing that we rarely bring up is that Cole Reagans has done it exactly once at the big league level, right? He has had the All-Star year. He's a Cy Young finalist, but every other year of his big league career has not been Cy Young worthy. You had the second half in 2023 where he really burst onto the scene, but it was 2024 where he lit it up. Last year, dealt with two different injuries, the groin injury, the rotator cuff strain, and the numbers weren't there until the very last month of the season. So if you're Boston and you're asking for Cole Reagans, you're telling yourself, well, Jarren Duran's been an everyday guy for us the last two seasons. He was an MVP top 10 guy in 2024. He was the All-Star Game MVP. He had a down type of year in 2025, but it still would have been an incredible year for a Royals outfielder. And you're saying, well, Jarren Duran still has a couple years of control. And yeah, Cole Reagans has tremendous upside, but injury is a concern, right? Is he going to be healthy in 2026? Going into spring training, he will be, but he's had Tommy John before. Then he had the injuries last year. It's kind of the same thing with Chris Bubich. Chris Bubich had Tommy John. He had the rotator cuff strain. He's only really done it once at the big league level or really put together a phenomenal year. And you could even, make a case it really wasn't because he was out for the second half of the season. So that's what the Royals don't have going for them in dealing some of their top arms. There are injury concerns there. But I feel the Royals would rather bank on Cole Reagans being their ace again than trading him for a Jarren Duran. Because as good as Jarren Duran is, to me, he's not worth Cole Reagans and really not even that close. The upside of what you get for Cole Reagans, I feel, is better than the upside you would get for Jarren Duran. Now you're getting Christian Campbell, too, a guy they gave a big-time contract last year, though he didn't really live up to it in year one, and a prospect. I'd imagine Boston is going, that's just too much for a guy that is coming off a year where he was hurt. If Cole Reagans had back-to-back years of Cy Young finalist finishes, then maybe you can have that discussion of that's what it's going to take to get him, and we really want him. But Sonny Gray going to Boston makes me think they're going to shoot for the moon a little bit, but they also don't need to trade Jarren Duran or one of those guys for one of Kansas City's pitchers. They do want to land somebody, but if the Royals don't line up, which it seems they're both asking for a lot in return of the players that each side is inquiring about, then they're going to move on to somebody else. They're going to go to a different team that might be a little bit more desperate to land a guy like Jarren Duran. Let's jump over to YouTube here. This one is coming from Shane. Number one target for me is either Matt Wallner or Colton Cowser. Number two target would be Xavier Edwards. So, Shane, I know you've brought them up a couple of times before. These are very intriguing options. I'll get that out of the way. Matt Wallner has a lot of power. He had such an interesting stat line, too, last year where it's like 20 home runs and 30-something RBIs. I mean, every single one of his home runs was a solo shot. I mean, just strange stat line that he had for a bad Minnesota team. But Wallner would be one of those guys where you ask Minnesota, does he fit into your rebuild? And there's a chance they say yes. We've now see that they are more open to trading Joe Ryan. That would be awesome for Royals fans. Maybe trading Pablo Lopez. I mean, it seems to be a teardown situation in Minnesota. I could see them pushing back with it being an in-division trade. I'm not sure they'd want to move Matt Wallner to Kansas City. And if they did, they're probably asking about one of those pitchers and Ryan Bergert and Stephen Kolek. Is that worth it? Colton Cowser, he feels like the likeliest option of the bunch. Outfielder, has good upside. Before he got hurt in 2024, was really playing at a high level. But for the Orioles, I wonder what their offseason plan is, because they seem like a team that is now going for it a little bit. You get Taylor Ward, you trade Grayson Rodriguez, you sign Ryan Helsley to a 2-year deal to be your closer. Is Colton Cowser a guy that they want to upgrade from, or they want to continue out of the starting rotation? They match up on paper, but if they expect a big bounce back for Colton Cowser, they're going to be going after one of your starters. And same goes for Miami. Miami, I feel very confident, is going to try to go for it a little bit this offseason, build around that core. And man, do they love Xavier Edwards. I mean, Xavier Edwards is a perfect Royal, but Miami feels that he's a perfect Marlin. And They just don't want to move a guy that young that seems to be one of the heart and soul guys of that core. They're good names that you bring up for sure, but it kind of comes down to what those teams are thinking. Baltimore and Miami expect to compete. Minnesota, not so much, but I could see them not wanting to deal to the Royals in the AL Central. Let's take our final break of the show. When we come back, still plenty questions to get to next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can follow me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. Want to tell you about the final sponsor that we have this afternoon in FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. For my pick, I'll go to Monday Night Football. You got the Patriots and the Giants. New England is a 7-point favorite at home. I feel it's a pretty safe bet there with a 2-10 Giants team. Though they were impressive against the Lions with Jameis Winston as their starting quarterback, but I'll still roll with New England at home to win and make that, I believe, 9 consecutive wins for the Patriots as they try to grab that top spot in the AFC. Final set of questions going to begin with Steve. Actually, it'll begin with Chiefs Freak 80. How will Sonny Gray's Boston trade affect the Royals' chances of trading for Duran or Abreu? We have touched on this a few times today, so I will just, highlight this again. It's not as much as I once thought. And truth be told, for some reason when this trade went down, I was thinking Sonny Gray was coming off the year where he was really stellar for St. Louis, and he had a bit of a letdown year. So, 4+ ERA, not that ERA is everything, but it did feel that what Boston was going for was more of a number 3, number 4 guy. And I still feel they want to find a true number 2, number 3. So I could see them, inquiring about a Noah Cameron, a Cole Reagans, a Chris Bubich, and wanting to move, a guy like Jarren Duran, because they know that they got an abundance of outfielders, and they're not going to be able to start those guys every single day. They want to move Masataka Yoshida, but they're not going to get a huge return for a guy that's pretty much a DH making close to $18 million a year. Jarren Duran, they know they can get a lot for, and they want to play Rafaela, Abreu, and Roman Anthony every single day. They have a younger outfield there, an outfield that can be elite defensively, maybe the best outfield in all of baseball. They also need to have depth on the rotation side, which is what they ran into, or an issue they ran into in the wild card series against the Yankees. So I don't believe that takes the Royals off the table. If anything, I could see them getting a little bit more aggressive now, which is why I feel they're asking for Cole Reagans or inquiring about him. So it's not off the table here. It'd be one thing if they went out there and landed a true top 1-2 guy in the rotation, which I feel that they would be fine with having 4 to 5 guys in that rotation that kind of label as a number 3 for a lot of teams in baseball. So I'll still put it at a true 40% chance that they strike some form of a deal. It just feels they really match up well on paper, which is why I think something's going to happen. But what the return is actually going to be, it might take a while to decide that. And the good thing is the winter meetings is coming up in a couple of weeks here. This one now is coming from Steve. What about former Royals outfielder Ryan O'Hearn? Is he a possibility? Would have been a lot better than MJ and Renfroe last year. Keep up the great work. And thanks as always for the kind words, Steve. Ryan O'Hearn's a name that I brought up last year, maybe around June, I believe it was, when he was really playing well for Baltimore. And I got absolutely torn apart on Twitter for it. That, it wasn't going to translate well. He was only hitting well because he was at Camden Yards. He got the shorter porch and right. But he then went on to play for San Diego, and I thought did pretty well for the most part. And yeah, he would have been by far and away the Royals' best outfielder last year. I did see a report, though, and I don't know how true it is, but he's asking for north of $15 million a year for a guy that's not a great defender and a corner outfield spot and would be playing right field and DHing. That feels like it's too high for me. If you were getting Ryan O'Hearn to 10 to 15 million, maybe. I certainly wouldn't hate it because I feel you're getting a really good bat for the middle of your order. But for what Ryan O'Hearn's asking for, that feels too high for me. And it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if he has a reunion with San Diego, because I feel they're going to want to run it back with a large majority of that roster that fell short in the postseason. This one's coming from Clinton, Mailbag Friday. Jack, love the show. It's evident you put a lot of time and preparation into making an insightful show. It seems like all of our eggs are in the Duran or Brendan Donovan trade hypotheticals. If we don't get one of them, how realistic is it that there is another tradable impact outfield bat for us in the market? It seems like they're the only ones discussed. Yeah, it really is a wonder who else out there is as motivated to move a Jarren Duran or Brendan Donovan, right? Or a Joe Adell, though I feel the Angels aren't as motivated to move Joe Adell anymore. The winter meetings are going to open up a lot. I feel that we are going to get a better idea at which teams are trying to move outfielders. The reason we're talking about Duran and Brendan Donovan so much is there are a few of the guys that are even being mentioned right now. Right. It'd be one thing if we had 10 outfielders that were being discussed every single day, but those are the hot names. Those are the hot topics. And Duran, Brendan Donovan, Joe Adell, at one point it was Taylor Ward. But I have no doubt in my mind that come December 15th, December 16th, there's going to be a few names out there that we haven't even discussed just yet. Because the Royals aren't locked into Boston and we have to get this deal done. It has to be Jarren Duran. There is always a world in which they pivot to somebody else around the winter meetings. And then a name comes up, or there's never a name that we even hear about, and then a trade actually happens. So that's what we saw at the trade deadline, this past season, where, I had names out there that made a lot of sense for a number 5 starter, a swing starter, and they get Ryan Berger and Steven Kolek. I had no idea that they were even on the radar. I had no idea Mike Yastrzemski was. Didn't really expect them to bring back Adam Frazier. So J.J. Picollo operates kind of under the radar like that. But the only reason we're bringing up those names is because they are openly being discussed. Whereas come winter meetings time, there will be more than just Duran and Brendan Donovan that are being linked to the Royals. This one is coming from, looks like, I believe only one more here that we have on YouTube. And I want to say it was about Luis Arraez. Yeah, it's coming from Giovanni. Why not sign Luis Arraez on a 2-year, $20 to $25 million deal and then trade for Brendan Donovan or Jarren Duran? You could package Massey in a trade. Arraez plays like a Royal minus the defense, but if anybody could fix that, it would be the Royals. You did give that qualifying offer or you tendered the contract of Jonathan India. You still have Michael Massey on the roster. I still feel that it's likely they bring back Adam Frazier in a bench role. Luis Arraez can really only play second and first base, and he doesn't do it very well at all. It doesn't feel like he's got a great spot for the Royals. And I did have an episode earlier this offseason about him being a potential fit, where if they did move on from India and Adam Frazier, I'd take somebody that could hit 284, get on base at a 330 clip, not strike out at all. You're exactly right there that he does scream Royal minus the defense. But I would say based on who's on the roster, right, who they already have, what they're going to be searching for this offseason, second baseman, especially poor defending second baseman, isn't really the likely route they're going to take. They're kind of putting all their focus into finding an outfielder and rounding out this outfield than it would be about upgrading at second base. I feel they'd much rather just count on the Jonathan India bounce back and then have, some insurance with Adam Frazier and maybe Michael Massey defensively to aid Jonathan India over at second base. But not a bad question whatsoever. That's going to do it for our mailbag episode of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every day. For your second, find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to dive a little bit more into that Cole Reagans, Jarren Duran talk coming out of Boston. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.